Welcome back to Good Morning Sri Lanka on MTV Sports. Now, if you've just tuned in, don't worry, you've just come at the right time because I'm just about to welcome someone who I met quite recently, but who's turned out to be one of my good friends and who also introduced me to hosting the show. We have in the studio with us Prashan De Visser. Prashan, very good morning to you.
Good morning, everyone. It's good to be back.
Yes, and how does it feel to be on the other side of the chair?
It's a little strange. I feel like I want to host the show, but then again I remember, no, I'm the guest now. And it's a joy to see you enjoying yourself and doing a great job.
Definitely, and it's very interesting because I think the first time I came on the show as a guest, you were interviewing me, and then later on, probably the last show that you did was with me, was it? Or maybe
one of the last shows we co-hosted.
And I believe that you started off as a host in the same manner as well.
Yes, I was a guest on the show about 4 years ago. Danu was interviewing me, and we talked about what we're going to talk about today, about Sri Lanka Unites, and then I ended up joining the crew as well.
So 4 years is a long time. So just let us start off with saying what exactly Sri Lanka Unites is. We featured Sri Lanka Unites and mentioned a bit about your in the recent past as well. But if you'd just like to tell our viewers what exactly Sri Lanka Unites is.
Sure. Sri Lanka Unites is a youth movement for hope and reconciliation in post-war Sri Lanka. What we see is that after 30 years of war and 3 decades of extreme violence and brutality, a country needs to recover, and the journey towards recovery should include the young people, especially because young people were really impacted by what happened. So what we started doing is, how can we as young people in this country really work towards leading that journey towards reconciliation, not just being part of it, but how can young people lead the way? Because the reality is, once we have so much of conflict and hatred, the older generation is tainted with a lot of hatred and bitterness, and it's difficult for them to move on or to learn how to take the next steps. So ironically, it becomes the role of the youth to start taking those steps forward, and also making sure that we don't make the same mistakes over and over again. So we just wanted to dive into it and see what it looked like if young people started engaging in reconciliation issues. And so we began the journey later towards 2008, and since then we've been coming in, bringing young people together. There's a stat that says over 70% of Sri Lankan youth don't have a friend outside their ethnic or religious group. Over 70%. So it's difficult for us to talk about a reconciled Sri Lanka or a united Sri Lanka when there's so much segregation. And it's important that we bring these people together. So that's the very first step we do in Sri Lanka Unites, of bringing these people together and helping them to create an inclusive Sri Lankan identity and growing together as one.
And over the course of these 4 or 5 years, how have you seen on the onset, have you seen that there have been a gradual progress in terms of reconciliation? And obviously you work with the youth. Is there a definite change? Do they actually say that, you know, probably the people you interact with now, do they say that they're much more friendly or more interactive with people from other ethnic groups rather than what they said some years before?
Exactly. The results have definitely been rewarding, and it's kind of fueled the movement to continue doing what we're doing. But the reality is that people need to understand that the end of the war is not the end of the conflict. A war was an outward manifestation of a deeper problem. There were hurts. And the reality is, if you have over 70% of the population not interacting with each other, that's perfect breeding ground for prejudices and negative stereotypes. So in fact, when we went down south early in the movement, when we started off, and interviewed some of our Sinhala Buddhist students, and asked them to tell us 10 things about the Tamil community, you know, 7 out of 10 things they said were negative. And then we followed the question up with, have you ever met a Tamil person? And the answer almost always, down south, was no. And then we followed that up saying, how could you come to this conclusion? And that's when you get stumped, and they're, well, I think my father told me this, or my grandfather did, or I read it in the media. We did the same in the north. We asked them about the Sinhala community, and once again, about 7 out of 10 things they said were negative, but without an actual relationship or interaction with a civilian who is a Sinhalese. So what we're doing is, by bringing these people together, we've seen so much of prejudices go away. You know, saying, well, maybe it was a broad statement, a generalization of an entire community. Yes, there have been extremists on both communities who have hurt each other, but we need to understand that we can't stereotype entire communities. And we're getting over 10,000 kids in our movement who signed the pledge, who are saying, I want to be the change. I want to help create a united Sri Lanka. I'm not going to allow hateful rhetoric to be part of who I am. And so these young men and women around the country, representing representing all 25 districts, are making a difference, and it's been an absolute joy and a privilege to see how the movement has progressed, and we're excited that this is just the beginning and the best is yet to come.
Exactly, and you know, you adopt a very grassroots strategy where you focus mainly on the A-level students who will be leaving out there to society, to the beauties and the evils of society. Now, just wanted to ask you, one of your main projects is the Future Leaders Conference. If you'd just like to mention about what exactly the purpose of having such a conference is.
The Future Leaders Conference is what gets most of the attention because it is the largest event where we bring head prefects,